All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Between Two Friends. We are on season 3 and have really had some amazing guests this season. And today, I am really excited to have Joel Gandara on with us. Joel, in fact, he's a machine. He had a procedure done today, and he's here with us anyway. And that's just the kind of guy he is. So, Joel, I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. Thank you, man.
My pleasure. I wouldn't miss it.
I have often said that immigrants are some of our best entrepreneurs, and I have a theory why, and I haven't prompted you for this, but I kind of want to know your theory if you agree, and if so, why.
Yeah, so I can't speak for all entrepreneurs that immigrated here, but I can tell you my situation. When I walk into my closet every morning, I have the shirt facing me. All my shirts face this way, but this one shirt faces straight at me. And it's the shirt that I wore on the boat when I came here. And that shirt to me acts as a reminder is, oh yeah, I'm here. That's how I got here. First of all, it gives me great gratitude to start every single day with, wow, what a difference from where I started to where I'm at today. So to me, it's, wow, look what my life could have been like. So what am I going to do? Waste it? At the end of, if I make it to 90 or 100 or whatever, I'd never want to look back and have regret. So that's my motivator to say, yeah, I'm here for a reason. I got to make it count.
Do you mind if I ask you to share the story of the boat and how you got here?
Yeah, not at all. No problem. So 1980, there was a mass exodus. I think it was 125,000 people. It's called the Mariel boat lifts. You can learn a little bit of that story in the Al Pacino movie,
Scarface.
Scarface,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
my parents weren't criminals like he was, but yeah, a lot of people came, a lot of families. So we got here in 1980, got to Key West. I was little. I was 4.5 years old, but I have a very good memory, and I remember a lot of that. I remember being a kid in Cuba, and I remember the trip and the storm and the boat going up and down. I remember the boat going up and seeing all sky all the way around, and when it would go down, I'd see 4 walls of water. And that happened for a while because we were in a storm. You can look it up. May 1980, Florida Straits, some bad storms. Got
Wow.
into Key West. It was beautiful. The water looked like a plate. It was calm. We got to a pier, and all these volunteer women had food for us. It was a phenomenal feeling, understanding we're free now. And my parents talked to me about that stuff, so I understood it. Spent some hours at a army base, a naval base in Key West, and then went to San Francisco, and that's where I grew up. I lived 18 years in San Francisco, a couple of years in LA, and now I've come back kind of home to South Florida and the Miami area for the last 21 years.
That is just an incredible story with most of us have never had to deal with. And to me, that's like my opinion on why I think that a lot of people that have immigrated here, like they've seen what other people haven't and don't have the perspective and other people fantasize about, right? And therefore, my perspective is you appreciate the freedom to be what you want to be. And not everyone is going to be as successful as you and what you've created business wise, which I want to talk about. But that's personal choice, right? And we're given the opportunity to make what we want and what we can of ourselves here.
Absolutely. I learned something when I was a little kid. I grew up in San Francisco. There's a lot of homeless people there. Now there's a lot. When I was a kid, there was some. And they interviewed a homeless man and they said, what can we do to help you? How can we get you out of here? And the guy said, this is the life that I chose to live. And he was super articulate. He goes, I like living on the street. I like having nobody tell me what to do. I respect that. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, that's the beauty of this country. You can be here, wherever you want. And it's all done by your choices.
I agree with you completely on that. So listen, when I was introduced to you, it was because you developed a system for successfully buying businesses and having a creative way to kind of see what business is undervalued and has potential, using email lists and some things like that to increase the business. You sell clothes online, and you've been super successful. And in fact, when I met you, you were so bored, right? You didn't know what to do next. And since then, you have put a lot of fun things in your life. So what gave you that entrepreneurial spark, and how did you get started?
Most people might say in college, or no, I got started in fourth grade out of necessity. And so I started buying these cards called garbage pail kid cards, and I'd sell them for double, triple, up to 20 times what I paid for them. And that allowed me to start making money. In fourth grade, I had a great month of $40 for the month of profit. And I bought myself this big transformer robot. I couldn't believe it. that I was able to afford that. So that's how I got started out of necessity. I learned a lot of lessons by hustling as a kid. In high school, I made $30 profit every single day in my latter years, like junior, senior year, because I would go to Costco. I had a friend with a membership. I'd go there, buy the boxes of chocolates. Back then, they were 24 cents each bar if you bought boxes, and
Right.
I'd sell them 2 for $1. So I made
Okay.
26 cents per bar. The machines at the school were 60 cents a bar. Mine were 50 cents, but you had to buy 2. And I had good volume. Everybody knew I was a chocolate guy. And so
Yeah.
that's how I started. And then, then it became a little bit more serious as I got older. But that's how I started, to answer the question.
Sure. That's very cool. I started selling pens and pencils in first grade. My parents loved telling that story. But I was stealing them from my dad's jewelry store. So, not me. I guess I didn't understand at that time, But anyway, I'm not surprised to hear that about you. And so then how did you get into, the businesses that you own now?
So I own 14 or 15 different brands of men's underwear. That's one of the businesses. And the way I got into that is in high school, I would go to garage sales on the weekends and find stuff. If I could find, one time I found a guy selling a ton of perfume tester bottles, bought them all, took them to the flea market, made a bunch of money. One day I went and a guy was selling jockey underwear brand new in the package. And then he sold them for $3 each. I talked him down to $1. I bought them about 500 and something of them. Went to the flea market that same day and did well. Got all my money back, but the car was still full. And a couple weekends more, I ended up grossing $3,000. I was maybe 18 years old or so, and it cost me 550. And I said, I make $8 an hour. This is a lot better. And he called me for 11 years, every 6 months. But along the way, I realized there's more to it than going to flea markets. Within a year or two, I started on eBay, and I went from $6 a piece to $10 a piece, still buying them for $1. And then, but I realized that's not enough. He keeps running out. He only sells me 2,000 at a time, 3,000. I need more. I found a brand out of Mexico. They gave me the distribution. And that was the first step to actually realizing I have a business.
You were buying and selling, and then underwear just like happened. It's important for people listening. And I really like when like young entrepreneurs hear these types of stories, because you don't have to have everything figured out. You get out there and you hustle, and things will come your way, and you never really know, what that's going to be. So and I don't know if you're still doing some executive coaching, but you got into, you really came up with a system of growing from one brand to 14. That seems to be running well for you. And then again, the lesson is you don't have to stick to one thing your whole life when you're in business. So now you're doing a bunch of other things, coaching and jujitsu and health has become very important to you. So what sort of sparked you to try new things?
The apparel business was 12 to 16 hours a day for years, many years, more than I want to even remember. Then it took me out of the picture, which, by the way, made the business even better. And that made life more enjoyable as well. It did get to a point where I got bored, but yeah, I did have kind of something naturally happen. I was mentoring for 15 years for free in different organizations to entrepreneurs. And someone said, hey, I really like your mentor sessions and this and that. Can I pay you to be my coach? And I said, why would you want to pay me? I would do it for free. And he said, no, I want a one-on-one coach. And I started that a few years ago. And now I've built a 6-figure business on coaching. And I dedicate maybe 8 hours a week to that. It's what I do the most of. And I absolutely, as far as work goes, and I absolutely love it. It's a passion to get to see people avoid the mistakes that I made and get to a better place faster than I did is extremely rewarding.
It's nice to build a business, and then we always think, man, we could do it 10 times as fast if we only knew then what we know now. But being able to pay that forward is a really good feeling. I don't do any one-on-one coaching myself, but I'm in masterminds in different groups, and seeing the light bulb go off for people is extremely rewarding. Your kids, they speak multiple languages, they're in sports, they get good grades. Was that something that you and your wife talked about before you had kids, and you're like, we need to agree, or is that something that's developed over time?
I got married at 26, but I wanted to get married at 18. And the whole process was sort of an interview process. So in both ways, I wanted to make sure that person knew exactly who I was. I showed them everything, and I want to know everything. So it was an interview process. A date for me, it wasn't like, tell me where you want to be in the last 5 years. It wasn't that dry. I'm a normal person. Sure. However, it was, what do you imagine it'll be like to have kids? And what do you imagine they could succeed and do? And my wife and I are absolutely on the same page with those things. I will, and she supports everything, but I am the disciplinarian. I am the one who, I'll hear English spoken in the home and I'll yell from across the house upstairs. I go, Spanish, because I
Yeah.
always tell them, you can speak any language except English in the house.
Okay.
I only speak 2 languages, but one of my sons speaks 4. 2 of them perfectly, and 2 of them very well, pretty well for his age.
Sure.
He's 15. So I want them to have every opportunity at their disposal when they're older. I want them to
Okay.
sell.
Yeah.
So my 16-year-old has over $25,000 in the bank. He did that himself, 100%.
Wow.
What does that do for his self-esteem? What does that do for his confidence? What does that do for his grit and a desire to keep going and not quit? You can tell my son no, and he'll go, okay, and he'll turn around and go try it somewhere else.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, I failed, or worse, I didn't even try. I'll give you that example that you know about. My 16-year-old got back from military school this May, finished 10th grade. Now he's going to stay here and finish here locally. But he got back, and within a couple of days, in the same day, he got a job as a cashier at Publix, starting as a cashier. And number 2, as a host at a restaurant. Immediately started working, right? When he finished, some days he does both of those jobs. And guess what he does when he finishes the host restaurant? He grabs his box of chocolates and he goes in the shopping center and he'll sell $30, $40, $50 at a 80% profit margin.
Wow.
So there's days where he's clearing, a few $100s. And as I go down the 4, they all have examples very similar. And that's something we motivate. And around the table, we ask a few questions at dinner. What was your favorite part of the day? Well, not only does that person get to express himself, we all get to learn about each other, but I always work finances into it. I always work business. They get motivated by it too. And this prepares them for real life, I think, more than penmanship and abstract mathematics.
You have 4 though, so it's not a fluke. And so for people who are saying, I want that for my kids, what do you guys attribute that to?
Yeah, so we don't force them in I have one thing I force the kids, a couple things. I force them to speak another language at home because English, we already speak it perfectly and fluent. Why would we focus on that one? Let's focus on the next one. And I let them choose. If you want to study French, Portuguese, Spanish, German, whatever you want. Now, I tell them Portuguese and Spanish and English, those are 3 really good ones if you live on the Western Hemisphere. So I guide them in that direction. Another thing I force them is our whole family trains in jiu-jitsu. And the reason I force them to do that, and I don't care if you're busy with sports, you don't have to go during that season. But when you're off of a season, come in at least once a week and train jiu-jitsu at the academy that we train at. And the reason is that's self-defense. That's self-confidence that you're never going to pick a fight. I've never picked a fight. However, I want to know that if I walk into a room and there's a bad guy, he's going to attack me, I can at least defend myself. I want that for my wife. I want that for my kids, especially my daughter. So those are the minor things we might really force a little bit like that, but within reason. The rest of it, we're not forcing the how and the what you're going to do. It's the big picture of, in the world, there's something called money. And if you have some of it and lead a good life, you're going to be happier and you're going to have more options. Every dollar that you make today and save is a freedom point for the future. You're not getting welfare from us. I grew up in poverty. My wife grew up lower middle class. And we made it. We paid our own college. We did everything on our own, working 2 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night. They're going to have it easier because they already have a head start. But those are the conversations that we have, and we do it over time. And if you ever want to come to dinner at our house and bring your daughter and your wife, we'll blend you into that conversation. At least you can see how we do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that offer. The examples there, it also takes effort to raise a kid. And I have 3 myself. And there are times when you're exhausted after a long day, right? You've worked out, you've run multiple businesses, I'm speaking for myself at this point. And letting the kids sort of, not sit at the dinner table or watch more TV than they should, it does take effort. And I really admire how well that you've been able to inspire your kids, because I know from Facebook they are well on their way to being incredible people, which is a testament to being a great parent. So
yeah, and it's just to get that, to me, it's discipline and consistency. You have to have the discipline to be consistent. I don't require motivation. I don't need motivation videos. I don't need music to pump me up. I know where I want to be, and I just do it every day. And I don't do these massive jumps. I just do these little bits every day. And I've made the decision, my wife's made the decision, that our main focus is our kids, not in giving them anything material. We don't talk about material things. We keep it simple, and we focus on becoming better. And we just every day, I'll use the example of, if I hear them speaking English, I could give in and not work myself up. And hey, but I'll do it every single day for the rest of my life if I have to. And in the end, they will be rewarded for it. And I'm going to not have regrets.
Let me ask you one more thing, Joel, if you don't mind, before we kind of sign off here. Let's go back to Cuba. Like, what is it going to take for that island to finally like find its freedom? You know, like how does that happen, if ever? Right?
In June of last year, in June of 2021, there were riots in Cuba. For the first time ever, people went to the streets and started protesting. And I saw so many videos. I don't have cable. I haven't watched news in over 7 years. I don't have Netflix. I'm not in tune with the world, but I was for about a month there. And I was watching everything I could. And I would see crowds surrounding one young man getting beat up by a police officer, right? But you see this crowd of 300 people yelling at the police officer, leave him alone. He didn't do anything. He's just expressing his opinion, which is illegal there. And they would beat him, and then they'd disappear him in jail, and then they'd kill him. And I asked so many Cubans who just recently came, I've been here a long time, and I'd say, why don't 5 of those people in the crowd just jump on the cop, take his gun, take his stick, and beat him up? And they said, are you kidding? 10% of that crowd is state security. They're watching. That guy obviously is going to get tortured and probably killed, the one fighting the cop. The ones who even make an effort are going to be visited and probably taken away for a week or 2. And if one of them jumps in, they're going to kill him. So if you're a dad, you're a mom, what are you going to do? Yeah. You're just going to risk your life. I had this conversation yesterday, by the way. Someone asked me, why aren't they doing anything? That's why. No one owns a gun. My dad said when then Castro took over, they said, we are building a utopia. Everyone, bring us your weapons. And people went by the droves and turned in their guns. So you can't go shoot a cop and hide behind the corner, take his gun, give it to your friend, and start a revolution like this country did against the British. There are no guns. Nobody can fight back. Only the state. They have a monopoly on force and prison and torture. How are they going to let that go? They won't.
I don't even have a response. It's so heartbreaking and frustrating. And imagine making the decision, I'm going to speak out, but I'm probably going to get killed, knowing that it probably won't make a difference anyway, because you know, your friends can't really join you in that. And oh man, it's just so disheartening and sad and depressing and all those things. And again, it's proven that in order to have that utopian society or socialism, it takes pure blunt force of government, and that's just I
never ends well.
Yeah, and I don't have the words. So sad note to end on, but real life to end on. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us today and opening up and sharing your story and giving us some more insight into your journey.
My pleasure, Brett. Thanks a lot.